Hey everybody, it's Sean from Rainier Arms, and today we have the guys from ROAM. We're going to be talking about their magnesium products, and we're super excited about them. It's something that we've been working on for a while to team up with these guys and be able to bring these, to your attention on our platform and get you guys to start looking at their stuff. Like we're just super excited. So today we want to get to know the guys behind it. I'll let them introduce themselves and talk about the products, talk about why magnesium could be an awesome option for you on your build, what its use cases are, all of that fun stuff. So guys, go ahead, introduce yourselves, who you are, what you do.
I'm Oxa Whitney. I'm the one of the partners of ROAM, the CEO. This is Jordan Senf. He's the head engineer. We have a couple other partners that aren't on the podcast here, but we started the business kind of as an offshoot of another company that I own that's focused on magnesium. It's a metal finishing company, and it's a very niche thing. The material is a little weird in certainly people's conception of actually what it is, but we knew the material. We liked guns. We played around with them. Certainly AR-10s are very heavy, and we wondered why they had to be so heavy, and we thought, hey, they don't have to be so heavy. So we thought we might as well start a business and beat our head against that AR-10 wall for a little bit. And now we're in AR-15, and I'm sure you're going to ask us why we didn't start with AR-15 and why we started with AR-10 a little bit, but
We'll talk about that. Yeah.
But yeah, that's who we are, and our focus is magnesium, and we're happy to answer any questions you have.
Awesome. So one thing that I think is really cool to point out is you guys were gun guys. You weren't just somebody who was like, oh, hey, let's just start also cutting guns. And that happens in some manufacturers. They, manufacture aircraft parts, and then they're like, yeah, let's just start doing guns, and they don't know much about it. So you guys have obviously a reason why you got into it. One of it was that you like guns, and that AR-15 or AR-10, that platform's just too heavy, which it is. So let's talk about that. You said it's kind of a long story, but yeah, why did you go straight that route? Since it's not a huge popular, AR-15s are far more popular than AR-10s. I mean, that's just the way it is. So yeah, why'd you guys start that route? What made you want to go there?
Well, it simply seemed like that would be the more dramatic weight savings. So we thought, honestly, we didn't do enough due diligence. So I mean, that full admission from the beginning. You go into the AR platform and you think, hey, there's this mil spec, there's this standardization that makes it super easy to mix and match parts, to design your own stuff. And that's very true with AR-15, right? There's a full expectation that you buy one company's component, another company's component, upper, lower, BCG, whatever, you smash them together, and the fit and function should actually be correct. There is no mil spec for AR-10s. There is no common print, and we did not do the proper due diligence. It became very, very expensive. Lesson to learn. But we just effectively thought, hey, we want to focus on hunting. A lot of guys, they use a 300 blackout for hunting hogs. If you were using a 308, or even 6.5 Creedmoor, it would be a lot more effective, to actually drop a hog to get on target to another one. So we just thought it was really good. Conceptually, that hey, we'd start with the AR-10, we'd make our name making this platform way lighter, and we still are definitely doing it, but we've shifted focus to the AR-15 just for this and our launch right now. But we just kind of conceptually thought this was the better way to go to start to differentiate ourselves from other people and other companies, to kind of make our name, and hopefully that still will be the case. It just was a much longer path than we anticipated.
Yeah, I know from our gunsmithing standpoint, we get a lot of AR-10s that come in that they're like, this just isn't running. How do we make this run? Why isn't this working? And yeah, it's true. It's hard to put it together and make it function properly. But let's talk about like the success you had with that AR-10 platform when it comes to the lightweight, the durability that you're having so far. I mean, what kind of weight can somebody look at saving by going with a ROAM setup?
I'll take it.
Yeah, I mean, probably a pound or so, just switching the, your hand guard and your upper and lower receiver over to our components, right? They're made out of magnesium. We haven't really touched on it yet, but that's a pretty varied, metal, just like aluminum, just like your steels, your tool steels, your mild steel, etc. So it's not really this homogeneous thing. It's careful selection of the alloy and processing of the alloy, etc. is what will give you a metal that's going to stand up to the abuse that a rifle would see. So there's considerable weight savings, and a lot of people try to save weight, especially in the AR-10. I mean, objectively, the AR-10, just the total absolute weight savings would be greater. Just there's more metal on the larger frame, but a lot of people attempt to save weight on their AR-15 or their AR-10, a number of rifles, and the receiver is a good place to do it, especially for an autoloader like the AR, because of course you mentioned the cycling issues with the AR-10. You're overgassed, you're cycling too fast, essentially. That can be typically you save weight right on your carrier, which speeds it up, so you have cycling issues, or you save weight maybe with a thinner profile barrel, and then that might have other issues, a limited firing schedule or a worse accuracy, things like that. So
just our goal really was to not have to have compromises to save weight. We wanted the rifle to just work as it should work, to not to not make, like you said, like you have to compromise the performance of the rifle, or you have to make these cuts into a receiver where FOD could get in or something. We just wanted it to work as you expect it to work, without compromises, and be way lighter. And the simplest way to do that is just make the parts out of magnesium. So it's a very simple thing. And what Jordan was saying, kind of about the different types of materials, you have different alloys, and they have different characteristics. And some people maybe conceptually don't understand what this is, but just like aluminum 6061 versus aluminum 7075, you see these kind of these terms thrown around, and they're still aluminums, but they have other elemental components in them that mean that they're just different materials that have different characteristics, different strength characteristics, different strength characteristics strength characteristics at different temperatures, etc. And so in the same way that we chose certain magnesium alloys, again, to try to make sure that they performed fully, that you could use the rifles in every conceivable way that you wanted to in the field, that they wouldn't break, that in fact our alloys are stronger than 6061. So it's if you're comfortable with the 6061 handguard, you should be comfortable with our components, our rifles.
Perfect. So, I mean, when you think about it as a pound in a rifle, that is a considerable amount of savings for weight, considering how much a rifle usually weighs. I mean, you think about a pound itself doesn't sound like much, but for a rifle, that's a big chunk. And that would mean essentially you can have that, heavier or bigger optic if you needed to. Because the problem a lot of times is that you start adding these things to the rifle that you want, especially when we start talking about AR-15s, because they're more heavily built when it comes to how much stuff's added to the rifle base itself, whereas the hunting rifles a lot of times are pretty more slimline and basic. But still, if you've got an AR-10, you're trying to reach out there real big or real far, you've got a real big optic on there, that's adding a bunch of weight. And so you can actually start getting into that, adding a little bit more to it while keeping that rifle a little bit lower. A pound is a lot, and that can equal a lot of adding stuff on there and keeping it still a lot lower. So I think that's amazing, and it is in some way simple, because you didn't do anything that's like groundbreaking, reinventing a wheel or anything. You're utilizing a material that's been out there. You've just done a really good job of figuring out what that alloy, like you're talking about, how it should be mixed up, how it should be made, whatever components are being used to make something that's stronger. And it's not going to have the same issues that magnesium traditionally has had, correct? When it comes to the firearms world?
Yep. So to right, as far as I know, the big name was Mag Tactical long ago, who did magnesium lowers,
Mhm.
and they did those out of a process called Dixon molding. So it's like a slushy, like a icy almost. So you're pouring this sort of half solid, half liquid mixture into a die. It's very similar to cast metal in its properties, kind of like a die cast, in between die cast and the like. So it's very it's done in the States. It's very for magnesium being an expensive metal. It the die is very expensive, but the component part price is very affordable. But the properties are quite poor. Now with Mag Tactical, I think it was a combination of the starting material was of pretty poor grain structure,
Mm.
a lot of defects, but also the machining was not the best either. I don't mean to insult anyone, but they wouldn't fit up well with uppers. The spacing between the pivot pins wasn't controlled well, and there's a lot of sharp corners, which for in engineering terms called like a stress riser. So any type of you have these super sharp corners, just basically they're all failure points. They're additional failure points where the stress on the material is arbitrarily high, and so those would fail from mortaring and other things. They'd brittle, fracture, and shear. But there was I believe Bravo used to do their KMR handguard series in an AZ 61 alloy, and AZ 61. I'll
And that's
shorten.
magnesium.
That's magnesium. Sorry, engineering here, so I speak thinking people are just on the same page. AZ 61 and magnesium alloy. It's used actually not because it's all that appropriate. It's used because it's available. So magnesium is just like it's infinitesimal in its size and scope in terms of an industry in relation to the aluminum industry. Aluminum, I could buy it in town anywhere. Magnesium, you'd be hard pressed to buy it online in the United States anywhere, right? You could go to Metal Mart and they charge you a fortune, but it's very hard to get your hands on. And what you can get your hands on is the commercially available stuff is usually AZ61 or AZ31, very soft, somewhat brittle, pretty low yield strength. It's not that ideal for a firearm. Something that's going to take a lot of abuse,
Yeah.
cyclic, repeated firings. It's a pretty aggressive environment, right? This sort of impact dynamic of that. So anyway, Bravo Company did that. They had relative success, I believe, with that handguard. But the alloys we've chosen, they're much harder to source, but they're much higher strength, higher ductility. I could go on, but I don't know how deep we want to get in on this.
Just fundamentally, the design philosophy we just started with, like, what is the application? What does that require? And then we found the alloys that met those requirements. We didn't, and we had the privilege of doing it from the other company. We just knew the material, and it was very hard. We had to create our own supply chains. And if anyone is watching this, who's kind of followed along with our AR-10 journey and how long it's taken us, and we're still not actually at our launching our second gen. It's taken much longer than we've expected. It's frustrated a lot of customers wanting to buy rifles, but we've had to create our own supply chains, like literally from pouring molten metal into molds, as opposed to just going out there and buying forged uppers, forged lowers out of aluminum. Like we have our own dies, we have our own die marks, right? And this is very difficult to do. And it's like we're still, yep, it's still a learning process for us. But fundamentally, we started from what does this need to fulfill? Like what are the strengths? What are the temperatures? And okay, we found them. Now what alloys fulfill that? And then we've chosen those and built our supply chain around the requirements, not what was available beforehand.
Yeah, I think the mindset in the past from other companies who tried it has been, they're okay with making the concession of strength, of durability, and perhaps they were driven into that by necessity of just what the industry would give them, would supply them. So having I came on to Rome. And Oxel has he has the owner of Peg, so they already had making connections within the industry of magnesium. So knowing these metals, know where these more specialty, high strength magnesiums and where to source them, and starting there. But you know, I guess it's broadly speaking, we've had to create something out of whole cloth. We do the machining here in house, and that was never our goal. Our goal is to make firearm products, and we would go to places that already make firearm products. They already do receivers, they already do buffer tubes, they do this and that, and we'd say, we just want this. We'll supply you with the metal. Can you make this for us? And they wouldn't even quote us the machining, right? They don't want to touch it. You know, everyone is. Let's just get to the point here. Everyone assumes magnesium is a big bomb. It's going to blow up or start on fire right away. And if it's in very small chip form, it can be hazardous if there's enough of it, right? We machine in here. We're making chips. We have CNC equipment. You take the necessary measures, it can be handled quite well, quite reasonably. But it is bulk form. You know, we've put up content and videos on our on social media and the like that addresses this. But you could take a blowtorch to it. You could put it on your grill at home and get it up to whatever. Put it next to your, if you really want to. Just go I wouldn't recommend it. It's pretty expensive stuff, but you grill at home.
Yeah.
It's not gonna combust.
If you don't get it to 1200 degrees, it's not gonna. Yeah. There's a wonderful video that we put up, old from the 50s from Dow Chemical, who's the granddaddy of magnesium.
Yeah.
And it's of 4 or 5, secretaries that, this presenter gives one a blowtorch, they give another oxy torch and a settling torch, and they try to, set these ingots of magnesium on fire. I just can't get it to light. It's if you can go find it.
It's like wood, right? We build our houses out of wood. No one bats an eye. Wood's flammable, but it takes quite a bit of energy to get it to that point. Magnesium is the same, right? Titanium is also flammable, right? So we deal with metals. People touch metals all the time, materials all the time that are combustible. Magnesium is just the one that's in the chemistry experiment at high school, right? that burns really hot really fast. So everyone assumes it's this very volatile thing. So if it's in the machining process, it represents a challenge, yes. And I think that's why a lot of shops in the States do shy away from it. They don't want to bother with it. So we had to create this machine shop from whole cloth, and that was a big learning curve, right, to actually do this, because part of it was our products are on the more expensive side because the metal is quite expensive, and so that really meant I'm trying to come up with an analogy here, but if you're going to buy a Ferrari or something, you wouldn't put on really cheap tires. So it just meant if we were going to work with this expensive material, we would need to master the machining process such that the fit and finish was up there with the best of them in the industry, right? All the machining, there's no machining, there's no tooling marks and the like, and so that's added a lot of delay and time to build that expertise to be able to achieve that, right? You wouldn't basically ask for something to be made out of gold or silver, and the craftsmanship is quite poor, right? It wouldn't match the expense of the material you're starting with.
Absolutely. And one thing that I wanted to touch base on is these are not cast, right? They're not cast like we had issues with cast magnesium.
So,
these are forged.
To be explicit, yep. So that's another reason it's taken so long is when we started the AR-10, we did extrusions instead of cast or anything like that. So those were extrusions, and then we've been in the last few years. It's taken us a long time to find a place to do it, but yes. Those are the receivers that you're holding for the AR-15 are forged. So forged is about the best properties you can get out of a metal, right? The strength, the toughness, as well as the grain pattern of the metal itself. It actually arrests any failure modes. So whatever they make, you watch shows about Forge and Fire, all these cool shows about knife makers and this and that. Long story short, when it comes to a material. Any metal, if it's forged, it's going to last longer, be stronger, be tougher. Even if objectively on a technical data sheet, it might have a slightly lower yield strength, reported yield strength than, let's say, that same alloy of material in the extruded condition. forging gives you second order benefits that far outweigh that. So yes, the receivers are explicitly those are forgings, and that's been part of sort of our primary goal here at ROAM again, which is let's get us to the most advanced stage to where you buy these parts and there's truly no concessions, right? It's not, well, if it's lightweight, when's is it going to fail sooner? Is it going to be this or that? You know, we're squeezing the absolute most that you can possibly squeeze out of that alloy when it's processed in that way. When it's not cast, it's better than extruded. The forging sort of the king in that regard.
Yeah. So, I mean, I wanted to make sure we touch base on that because I think that's huge. You just don't usually see forged magnesium in the firearms industry at all. So we're going to talk some more about a little bit of these details, but I do want to point out that the new offerings are going to be these uppers and these lowers from ROAM. Right. We already have, you guys have, and we already have on the website, handguards, which have been a popular product around the warehouse and everything. Everybody loves holding them, feeling them. They are noticeably lighter just holding a aluminum versus a magnesium. And then we've got the split rail itself, which in my opinion it's my favorite just because of how light it is and how I can build out a rifle. Having that C clamp is just insanely comfortable. The way that it's just great. There's no sharp edges. It's just awesome. Love it. But the ones that we really want to focus on and what we're launching is the upper and the lower. The handguards themselves though are not forged, correct?
No, I don't know that anyone forges them. It's just that hollow profile you need on the inside to fit, gas tube barrel and the like would preclude it. I think there's maybe one company. I think Knights Armament maybe does impact extrusion for their handguard, but their handguard is integral. It's actually their barrel nut on their SR15 and the like. But almost every handguard is some type of 6000 series aluminum extrusion, and in this case, ours is also extruded. It's just a magnesium alloy, but it exceeds the mechanic. It's tougher than any aluminum handguard you own, right? Because it actually exceeds 6000 series aluminum in its mechanical properties, its strength and the like.
Yeah. So all together, when they come together, it's beautiful. They look great, which I know I'm not going to keep holding it up because this camera is going to catch it. We're going to put some B-roll in. So durability wise, you're going to have good durability. Like I said, if you're comfortable with the 6000 series aluminum, typical aluminum upper or lower, you're going to be great with the magnesium. Lightweight, durable. Now, one of the aspects about it that makes it different is that Taggite. So let's talk a little bit about that process and what it is, what the purpose of it is, and all that.
Okay. Well, full admission. So if there is one Achilles heel of magnesium, it is corrosion. And if you want to think of what corrosion is, rust. So rust is the most familiar form of corrosion for people. It's converting iron to iron oxide. That's what happens in steel. So it's the same thing for aluminum to aluminum oxide, or magnesium to magnesium oxide. The difference between magnesium and everything else is it's very specific to something called, and I know like we're getting into, Jordan's talking about a lot of technical stuff and maybe it's excessive, and this also might be excessive, I don't know, but it's something called a galvanic couple. And it's when you have two dissimilar metals in contact with each other. So you have a piece of steel and a piece of magnesium touching. And when you have two dissimilar metals, one is going to sacrificially corrode for the other. And if anyone owns a boat, you probably have sacrificial magnesium anodes. And what that means is that you've like electrically connected this magnesium anode to the hull of your boat, so it corrodes and your hull doesn't corrode. And as long as you have some magnesium, it's not all converted to magnesium oxide, your hull's going to be perfectly fine, because that piece of magnesium is going to sacrificially eat itself away effectively for the hull, for the steel or the aluminum or whatever it is. So that's the one true Achilles heel of magnesium, that it pretty much wants to sacrificially corrode for everything else.
Or benefit, depending on the application.
Yeah, benefit, yeah. Yeah. But I mean, you have things like fracking balls. They use magnesium for fracking, and they even have made little like propulsion systems out of very volatile alloys of magnesium. So it's kind of interesting, but I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole. So the whole purpose of Taggite is to basically just protect against that. You have a lot of aircraft. They use magnesium. It's the lightest structural metal, so it should be pretty obvious why it's beneficial to have lighter aircraft. And all the gearbox housings, the transmission housings, and Apaches, Blackhawks, Chinooks. There's a good amount on the F-22, on the F-35. I code it all. It all comes up to North Dakota. These very expensive, massive pieces of metal that get steel inserted into them, and that's kind of the problem. They get steel inserted into these pieces of magnesium. So what do you do to make sure that these very expensive things don't waste away, and you have to replace them for hundreds of thousands of dollars per this size gearbox for the tail rotor of an Apache or something. Well, you have to hermetically seal that magnesium, isolate it from the environment, so when that steel is in contact with it, it's not actually in contact with the magnesium, but it's in contact with coatings on top of the magnesium. And like I said, magnesium is this really niche thing, and I referenced Dow Chemical being like the granddaddy of the material. Dow in the 40s and 50s, created, or 30s, 40s, and 50s created most of the coatings that have been used and oftentimes are still are used today. And there just hasn't really been that much innovation until we came along and we developed Taggite. And it, so in one sense it's impressive, in other sense it's not impressive because no one's really been paying attention. But we created this coating. It's an anodize. It just means that you combine chemistry and electricity. The part that you're trying to coat is the anode. You have a cathode, and ironically, what you're doing is you're growing. You're deliberately corroding the part, but just in a very pure, very dense way. So you're growing a magnesium oxide layer on the outside of your part. It's literally a ceramic, so it really does isolate the underlying material, the magnesium, from the environment, and it's very hard. It has these teeny tiny little pores in it that when you put a paint on top of it, which we use Cerakote, which is also like a ceramic based, very durable paint, it bites into that Taggite very well. So the adhesion for anything you put on top of it's really good. So we're protecting these parts as best as they possibly could be protected. The durability actually of the coating is the surface durability is actually better than the underlying material. The ceramic is very, very hard. So we're, like I said, that's really the only Achilles heel, and we're mitigating it in the same way that we mitigate it for every Apache that's flying, for every F-22, every F-35. We have stuff flying on the ISS, satellites in space, and it works for them. It works for ROAM products. I hope I answered that question in however convoluted of a way I answered it.
No, you definitely did, and I always appreciate the nitty and gritty and the detail. I know not everybody does. Some people just want the details on the product and that's it. But I think that helps answer maybe some, I don't want to say criticisms, but things that people might be like, well, I don't know that I want to spend this much money because they're not cheap. I don't know if I want to spend this much money on an upper and a lower that's just going to corrode and fade away or whatever, because they're going to be hopefully using it and not just sitting in a safe. So has the possibilities of being chipped or dinged or dropped on the ground, like you had mentioned. Mortaring is something that can easily break a rifle if it's not done properly. So all these things can come into their head and be like, I don't want to spend that kind of money. I can just do aluminum. So knowing it's not just, oh yeah, there's Taggite on it, and you're like, okay, cool, whatever that is. Now we get a little bit better idea what it is, why it is. It's not just a paint. It's actually becoming a very, very strong structural part of the product. So I think that I appreciate that you went into the details, what I'm saying. I think that would help me jump and make a purchase like that, rather than just being like, oh, well, they mentioned something that I don't remember what it was and it sounded cool. Now, at least I know that there's a structural purpose behind it.
Yeah.
In a real world sense, right? These components, customers who've had our AR-10 rifles our own testing here, our own hunting and shooting experiences, and other random things. You know, we get a lot of snow here, long winters. We've left rifles out just in the snow all winter long to come back and see them, you know, through the seasons and see what happens. And it's almost it's without fail, it's actually the steel components that are corroding, that are rusting on these rifles, right? So it's essentially a good like a good tidbit would just be like your steel is all going to be your limiting
Yeah,
factor,
it's always,
right?
you know,
Our coatings, the Cerakote and the Taggite, far exceed the corrosion protection that is on most of your steel components.
yeah, it's
So
all it's easy to
overwrought.
be myopic and be overly concerned about certain things, but then you forget like your cool steel components are just gonna just bloom rust,
Yeah,
you know,
we just
immediately after.
It'll be up on
After
social
you
media.
sneeze on
It'll
them.
be up on social media in a few days. We just did this little salt fog test, just a more like real world one. We've got salt fog equipment and the like that we do, like take all these adhesion tests and salt fog corrosion tests. But this one's just like, here's your bolt carrier, which is steel. Here's a ROAM upper, which is Taggite and Cerakote. We're going to put these in a salt fog bath, and we'll post that in a few days for people to look at. Just like, here's what happened after like 24 hours simulating these being like in the ocean.
Yeah, but
right?
just a context with salt fog is it's a conventional test where you have this chamber where you just have this salt fog mist. So it's
Constantly just
yeah, it's 100%
spraying it.
humidity with you know it's trying to like imagine you put a part on a beach, but it's 100 times worse. So
You're trying to accelerate it, right?
you get this accelerated results of how bad the corrosion is. I mean, my whole life is corrosion. That's it's this ridiculous thing. So we have this interesting equipment over at the other company where we can do a lot of beneficial tests for ROAM. But yeah, hopefully
That's cool.
out here pretty soon.
Yeah, I guess I feel like I should say these two things for anyone listening and for this conversation. I mean, the two things that come to mind for me that I like to address for magnesium is that one, it's like there's again another video on social media. We're just comparing it. Magnesium and carbon fiber share about the same density, and carbon fiber has become very popular within the firearms industry, whether it's a barrel or like a handguard or this or that, or maybe cheek weld this or that. But carbon fiber, it has a lot of concessions, right? Geometrically speaking, whatever. I mean, the short of it is like our handguards are lighter, than the carbon fiber handguards that are on the market, right? And there's no concessions to be made. They have greater strength than your 6061 metal handguard. They have a better coating, Cerakote, but most people don't realize like magnesium carbon fibers share such a similar density, but by the time that they're actually in bulk form, that you've been able to manufacture them and put them into the shape that you require, the carbon fiber usually has so many concessions due to the manufacturing process that it's actually no longer we outcompete it for a product sense, right? Because the density is so close. And then as well, I think maybe there's a question that comes into the listener's mind, like, if magnesium was such a great thing, why doesn't someone else do it? Why doesn't like Sig Sauer or someone big do it, right? And what I'd like to address there is two things very quickly. We went to this Vortex shooting class a couple of years ago. That it was a great class, like long range precision shooting out in Wisconsin, and we brought our rifles and we shot there and for 3 days, our AR-10s, and Ox was talking to one of the guys that said, "Oh, we did binoculars. You recall this? And we did the frame of the binoculars for
I don't remember
out of magnesium." And he was like, "Yeah, they were super lightweight. It was awesome, but they corroded." And so we stopped doing it. I was like, well, you should have used Taggite, right? They didn't basically they didn't put a proper coating on the metal to protect it, because these guys would be on like boats right at sea. It was the application for like the Navy or something, and they'd have these binoculars, and they would just sit on like the dinghy or the boat all day long, whatever, and they'd just be immersed, surrounded by sort of a salt sort of mix in the air. And so it just shows that what I'm trying to show there is that there's a lack of knowledge inherent to magnesium of properly doing it and applying it.
Most problems have solutions if you actually look into it, and then when you have a solution, they cease to be problems. And maybe that's the simplest way to say it.
Yeah, and then it's not that It's not that the magnesium isn't suitable for like some of these some of these products. You know, why isn't Sig Sauer or whoever using magnesium? It's really difficult. There's not really there's not an appreciable industry to support it, right? Places don't want to machine it, so we had to start our own machine shop. Places don't want to use the higher strength alloys because they're harder to process, they're harder to forge, they're harder to extrude, they're harder to mix the billet for the casting. They have extremely disparate alloys, so they'll super dense alloys versus the magnesium, so they want to settle to the bottom when they're mixing the actual like cast billet. Either way,
We might actually be going into a bit too much.
the
detail.
point is, I'm just saying that they have value, but I could see from the customer's end or the viewer of this podcast that, well, these guys are just regular guys, and we are. Why aren't these big companies with much more money and much more, lots more engineers, etc.? Why aren't they doing it? And the challenge there is that it's just trying to, in a simple way, say it's not that simple. There isn't an easy place to order it. Where a lot of the times we do it where it's boutique, where we're having to build that. We're having to hand in hand with the forger, with the extruder, build them that expertise. We're the guinea pig, so to speak, right?
So y'all are figuring it out, so everybody else can step in and start.
Yeah,
doing
yeah.
They're done with us. Yeah.
So the AR-15 platform now, you guys are branching into it. I'm sure it's been somewhat easier than the AR-10 because of the standardization, like we're talking about. The AR-10 just doesn't have a standard anything. You guys did go with mil spec for your upper and your lowers, so that's going to allow this to be compatible, right? Full compatibility with everything. Have you ran into any issues at all with fitments or anything like that? Is there anything concerned wise people should have, or should they just be ready to rock and roll? What's the take on that?
No, they should be ready to rock and roll. There's 100% their compatibility with your mil spec, your AR-15. So, we were thinking in the future we might add like something like what Arrow has for their enhanced, integral trigger guard and the like. But for this, it was just keep it simple. It's mil spec. It's explicitly, mil spec. So any pivot pins, triggers, buffer tubes, castle nuts, mag catches, etc. Your pistol grips. It's unambiguous that all of that's going to be interchangeable. The roll pin for the bolt catch, right? I've done it myself assembling ARs. You can break that roll pin or you can mar it up because it's such a long reach. You got to reach like 5 inches. Everyone hates putting that roll pin in. Other companies do it, so we do it as well. If it's a screw, it's a lot harder to break that thing, and it's easier to get in, get out if you want to swap your bolt catch out. Where if it's that roll pin, and Sean's showing it there, that little piece of silver, that little stainless screw there. It's just a screw is much easier, much more forgiving than the roll pin, especially when it's just a very difficult angle to get the roll pin punch.
And then in the upper receiver, we added this notch for a barrel pin clip, and Jordan can talk about that a little bit. That is also a little bit of a deviation.
Yeah, it ships with it, but basically that notch for where the barrel indexing pin usually goes, that's just been widened slightly. And so on your barrels, for your AR barrels, you have that pin, the clocking pin. All the uppers ship with this little tab that just drops right over the top. So it's like converting a pin to key stock, like a motor, a shaft assembly. If you've ever done any, shop work.
Fundamentally, its purpose is just to increase the surface area that is pushing into the upper when you're torquing your barrel nut down.
Yeah. Ideally, you use the right gunsmithing tool, right? Your barrel, your reaction rod. But I would say we've all been at the range where maybe we need to take the muzzle device off. We put the rifle between our knees, and we twist on the muzzle device with a big crescent wrench. That's putting all that stress right on that little joint, on that little pin joint. And so it's like, why don't we just make this little piece, quadruple the surface area, and just put that extra little bit of comfort and safety factor in. So that's essentially what that's for.
All right, and then on the upper, also a little different range or direction you went. Now I've been seeing this a lot more coming in with companies, especially using with the ejection port cover and stuff. But that brass deflector, instead of being full on magnesium, we're going a little bit, I'm assuming lighter is why we went that route.
Yep. Yep.
Partially, I mean, the other reason is that it is very, very harsh on the coatings. If it was magnesium, you'd be probably going down to bare metal relatively quickly. So just to eliminate that as an issue, we went with the polymer, and removable if it conceivably broke, but I mean they never do. But yeah, it's light, and it just eliminates a very obvious wear surface from just any conceivable issues if it was integral in magnesium.
So we keep talking about light. What can we expect to see when we look at a magnesium AR-15 upper, lower, and handguard? I mean, however you want to put it together, just comparing the best that we can. It can't be apple to apple because it's different metals
It's
and
about
stuff. But
half a
what can we
pound.
see?
It's about half a pound, right? So if you buy the builder kit, you're gonna be about half a pound lighter than your aluminum counterparts. Of course, that varies depending on your base of the handguard length, right? But the upper
Mhm.
and lower are pretty much fixed quantities.
Okay, so about half a pound in the weight saving. Now, where do you guys kind of see, like, where do you want to see the market for these going? Are you wanting to see these just going, AR-15s aren't huge in the hunting world, and that's essentially what the AR-10 platform is used a lot for. So branching into the AR-15 platform now, what are you guys wanting to see where you wanted to see these, I guess, land? Where do you see it landing in the
I mean,
market?
yeah, that's tough to say. I I think with a lot of the newer cartridges developed like Hornet by Hornady, a lot of the arcs, for example, the 6 arc and 338. I think the AR in the next few years, as people start using those more, will become a little bit more common, depending on which state you're in and legislation and what they require for caliber and et cetera. But the 22 arc, the 6 arc, the 338 arc, they've squeezed a lot of extra performance. I mean, the 338 arc, I'm excited for because as a whole, the AR-15, all things being equal, it's just going to weigh less, right? So if that can be adapted and used, such as the 6 arc or 338 arc, I think you could see the AR become more accepted within the gun community as being used for hunting, right? It's usually regarded as just it's too small for hunting and the like, but um, ballistically, those are pretty impressive cartridges that have been developed
Mhm.
by Hornady. But I think I like the way you look at it, which is um, I don't see an explicit niche, whether it be hunting or tactical. I see it as more like if I can save half a pound or more going to these magnesium receivers and they're proven, they're durable, then I can just put more stuff on my rifle without it being
Mhm.
without crossing that sort of imaginary threshold. This is just too darn heavy now. So now I don't have to take them all off if I want to use one of those, or my I can fully outfit the handguard with everything, the maul, the laser, etc. And or
Yep.
a nicer optic, right? The hog hunter guys really like our stuff because those thermals are so heavy, right? So
Mhm.
that just maybe they can step. Yeah, it keeps the rifle at a more manageable weight, basically.
Exactly. And I think that in my mind, and we've talked about this before, that's how I really see these products landing is um, we just in the industry, people like to get their rifles and then they deck them out with just so much stuff, especially kind of in the self-defense tactical world, right? Competitions and stuff is completely different when it comes to that.
Mm.
But now utilizing something that's probably more durable than most people's rifles because they're just running a 6,000 series aluminum, you can have the durability that you want. On top of that, now you're not carrying around a heavy ass rifle. Now, justifiably, a lot of people they build out the rifles and they go to the range every now and then with them and shoot them, and they're not really. It doesn't. It could weigh 20 pounds and it really wouldn't matter.
Yeah,
But those who maybe they have a profession that allows them, or they need to carry a rifle, or like for me, I'm a farmer and I like to have a rifle with me because I have issues with predators that I have to take care of. If you've ever carried a rifle around for any duration of time, an hour or more, if you're taking a carbine class or something like that, they get heavy and they start wearing on you, even if you got a sling on and all that. And then even though we know that, we still want to add things like the suppressor, the maul. We want to have some
yeah,
sort of
yeah.
light on there also. We want all these different things. So now we can start bringing back that weight, making it a lot more manageable, especially with the shorter handguards that you're offering now for people that want to have backpack guns. Now you can have a much lighter backpack gun, which could maybe justify putting that bigger light on if you wanted or something along those lines. So just like you said, I don't think there's a niche. I don't think this is only for hunters, although I see hunters being um, they would benefit a lot from it, because even though you're not using your rifle, you're carrying your rifle usually the whole time, depending on
Yeah.
where you're hunting. I grew up in Northern California in the heart of the redwood trees, and when we went hunting, it was a whole endeavor, and you were hiking miles. And it wasn't like out here in Kansas where I just literally go to my back patcher and I climb up a tree, sit in a tree stand, and I'm just waiting. It's
Yeah.
totally different. So like for me, I don't care how heavy it is. I just got to pull it up one time, shoot, and then it's sitting on my lap again. So not a big deal. But a lot of other places around the world or around the United States where hunting is more of an activity, you're walking for a period of time. A lighter rifle is going to make a big difference. A pound might not sound like much when you compare it to a lot of other things like 2,000 pounds, whatever, but a pound is a big change on a rifle. With that being said, also is it's going to change how that rifle feels and shoots, because you've taken away that weight. A heavier gun tends to recoil less in most cases, so you get a lighter gun. You can start playing with where your stuff goes, and you can start changing how that rifle feels. So your that recoil impulse, especially in the competitive world, that recoil impulse is more of like what you want it to be. I mean, there's just a lot that you can do when you're starting with a smaller, or a lighter, I should say, a lighter platform. I think another area where ROAM can really do well, and I've used it with PCC competitions and UFPSA, not with the upper and the lower receiver, but I switched over to the handguard, and the handguard that I was running versus the ROAM split rail, which is very similar to this one. This handguard was half the weight of the handguard that I was using, and it actually made a noticeable difference on the recoil. I had to practice and shoot a little bit to get used to it, but what I noticed was most of that weight on the rifle now was sitting back towards my shoulder versus it being pulled forward, and that's kind of what I was trying to get on earlier. That weight with the handguard being heavier, more forward, I was easier to whip that rifle around to be able to get to the different target acquisitions, set the target arrays, and all the things that I have to shoot and do. It just made a difference because that weight was sitting more forward or more back towards my shoulder. Does that kind of make sense what I'm going at?
Yeah,
It was just that weight was back.
The rifle. Yeah.
Exactly. You probably have way smarter words to use to describe that than
Well, I mean,
I find yourself.
the concept of the lever arm, right? That it's not just how much it weighs, but it's how far away from you it is, and you have that same weight. Like hold 5 pounds right near your chest, and then extend your arm and hold 5 pounds.
Exactly.
Time how long you can hold it up, right? If you hold it here, you can hold it up for a lot longer. So the closer that that weight is into you, inherently the easier it is, even if it was the same weight. So it and obviously, like you said, just the ability to move and like target acquisition becomes considerably easier. And for
right, our like lead machinist here always says, you shoot your rifle 1% of the time, you carry it 100% of the time. It's a good use, yes.
Yeah. And one issue with the recoil mitigation, certainly with the larger caliber, the AR-10, we put a lot of thought into how we're going to manage that, because when you get into those higher calibers and you actually reduce the weight, that the recoil has to go somewhere, right? And if you lighten that rifle up, it goes into your shoulder. So we have just designed into the gun kin shot buffers, and they're very different. Jordan could maybe talk about it in a little more detail, but it's not just like a thicker pad on the end of your buttstock that absorb it. Yeah, recoil pad, but they actually
hydraulic buffer.
They're hydraulic buffers, and they literally take out energy in their collapsing, and they do a very good job. We like that company, and so there are ways where you can just fundamentally mitigate the recoil despite the reduction in weight.
Yeah,
I definitely agree.
I like to shy away from muzzle brakes. They're kind of harsh.
Yeah,
they're great for the shooter.
Yeah.
In the competitive world,
they're terrible for the guy next to you. Yeah.
Yep. Everybody else around you hates it. So whenever I go to a rifle class with some of my buddies, I always make sure I grab the rifle with the biggest break. and I'm just sitting right next to them, and I'm just beating them up. I love
Yeah.
it. But I mean, they work, but yeah, it's not fun for everybody else, especially totally off topic, but at Rainier Arms Firearms Academy, we have a 50 cal Barrett 50 cal that we shoot indoor. It
Oh,
is
wow.
suppressed,
Okay.
but every now and then I take the suppressor off and shoot it, and it's just like, I mean, you just know it's just crazy. Your teeth are rattling and everything. I absolutely love it, and that break is just
Cleans
nasty.
all the dust off of any door frames.
It would get rid of your cold.
Yeah, yeah, just clean it all out. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's great. We'll have parties come out and I'll be like, all right, you guys want to see, you want to feel something, and just take that suppressor off. But it also tells you how well that suppressor works, because when you shoot indoors with that suppressor, it's just totally off topic. But
Yeah.
talking about brakes. So yeah, I think when it comes to where is this going to fall, there isn't any one spot where it's just going to be completely. It can be for anybody and everybody, because a lighter rifle, if you're going to be adding stuff to it, is only going to help you. A lighter rifle in some of the instances like competitive shooting or hunting is only going to help you. And then if there is an issue, which realistically, in my opinion, AR-15s don't recoil like at all, and that's what makes them so nice. But for some people, I'm a little bit bigger, 6'2", 220 pounds, and it's easier for me to manage. If you're just a much smaller person, there are ways like buffer systems that help tremendously with recoil. Or if you want to run a muzzle brake, that can help tremendously with recoil. So it has its place. A backpack gun could be awesome. A shorter handguard, which you guys are offering now. What sizes are we at now? We have. I'll just let you talk
7,
about them.
yeah, 7-inch. So, for maybe like your 300 blackout kind of builds, your 10-inch, which would be, good for like your 11.5-inch 223. So 7, 10, 12.5s, and then 15s.
So we're pretty much covering whatever you might need that for, unless you're just going those real short barrel weird ones. But
Yeah.
you've got an option for it. And then, I'm sorry, what was that?
Just more common, popular ones.
Exactly. And then when it comes to like trying to figure out what weight, I remember we had mentioned about 33% lighter, just in general. If you could have like this same handguard made out of aluminum exactly the same way, this would be about 33% lighter. Was that the right number?
Yes, that's correct. Yep.
Okay,
Yeah,
perfect.
It's a third lighter than aluminum. So if just a rule of thumb, if it's the same thing, it'll be a third lighter.
Perfect. Okay. So I mean, I'm super stoked about these. I know when we started talking, I don't even remember. I mean, earlier this year, whenever you guys came by the shop and we were really like starting to talk about this stuff, and we got a couple of I think one of the first batches maybe of your uppers and lowers you guys sent to us, and we got to play with.
They weren't even production parts. They were pre-production parts. I remember I was pointing out all little details, and you're like, basically saying like you're too focused on this. but yeah, they weren't even production parts.
Which I guess says a lot, because when they came into the shop, I was taking them around and showing everybody. We had an upper and a lower, and I was showing everybody, and the I guess I'll just call it the craftsmanship behind it. It was just insane how it felt, how the angles looked, and there is no machine marks. There was nothing that I was able to notice and see. It's just awesome to see. I'm actually very excited about it. I've been in love with the handguard for like over a year now. Like I said, we've used them on competitive rifles, and they just feel phenomenal. The split rail, just the I guess the ergonomics, the geometry, just how it all feels. It's just insane. And this has been, not this one, but the split rail has been popular in the warehouse. People grabbing it and feeling it, and they're like, "Holy crap, this is light! This is so light!" And just how it feels. Which obviously your split rail is going to be lighter than your full rail, because there's no Picatinny's on the top.
Yeah.
It's actually not that. I mean, it's a good amount of weight savings, but it's there's a video up on social media of us just comparing it to a carbon fiber handguard that's available on the market, and that we're doing a 12.5-inch comparison. The 12.5-inch with a full rail of ours is lighter than the carbon fiber 12.5-inch that has no Picatinny rail, right? And ours is still lighter. So it's
wow.
I just don't think that's well understood, right? We have customers call us, hey, I want to buy your receivers, and then they ask us what, you know, for the AR-10, there's a lot of ambiguity as to parts interchangeability, so customers will be on the phone with us or email in and say, what pivot pin should I buy? Does this work? Can you check this link to this trigger? Is this going to work? Yeah, it's okay. If it says this, it's this spec. If it's okay, whatever. And they're like, yeah, well, and I'm using, you know, this handguard. Or like, you're aware that handguard is heavier than, you know, whatever. It's a little bit of, they don't really trust me to some extent. I'm an employee of ROAM, but I'm like, our handguard is lighter than that one though.
Mhm. Well, I mean, carbon fiber has been in the market for a long time, as everyone's seeing it as like, you can't get lighter than carbon fiber. You know, carbon fiber is the way to go. And so with magnesium now finding a way to be applicable in our industry without, you know, the drawbacks of what we've talked about at the beginning of the video, I think that that's going to start changing, where people are going to start realizing like magnesium is a player in the game. Magnesium is light, it is strong, and we're not stuck with just carbon fiber, which I personally don't like the look of carbon fiber most of the time, and you can't really paint it as well as you can metals and stuff. So, you know, you can have a lighter gun that looks more traditional without the carbon fiber, which sometimes make it even look like it's supposed to be a race gun or a competition gun rather than something more useful in the sense of self-defense and, you know, in that hard use area.
And
So,
just I wanted the things. Anything has its correct application, and like we use BSF barrels, which uses carbon fiber, and
mhm,
we use them because we think that's a very good application for the material, right? It's
sure, yeah,
the right type of application. It's you know, they tension their barrel with this carbon fiber sleeve, this carbon fiber jacket, and so they're able to reduce that steel wall thickness down a little bit and mitigate the heat warping of the barrel, you know, the getting you off target by tensioning that magnesium sleeve. And they have an air pocket, so they don't have like direct contact between the magnesium and the carbon fiber, which does a lot to radiate that heat and not insulate, because carbon fiber is an insulator. So like that's a great application. They have an impressive product, and they're using the material correctly. And so just I wanted to make sure that we're, you know, I'm all for specialty materials, you know, whether it's magnesium or carbon fiber or titanium or anything, but it's just knowing the correct application, knowing the correct characteristics, and how to utilize it. I think Jordan's right about handguards. It's kind of nonsensical, but for other applications, it is good. And anytime something is used well, that's its own justification.
Yeah, and piggybacking on that, you know, addressing durability. You know, you mentioned like recoil, Sean, of like the AR-15. It's usually not really a consideration. You know, if you're shooting 223 or 300 blackout or the like. We did some testing this last winter. We just went out to the range. This is when we first got the receivers prototypes off the machines and painted, and we shot I think it was 400 rounds of 450 Bushmaster on like a 5-pound AR-15, because we wanted to lower the weight and we wanted to amp up the recoil, the whole pulse, the recoil pulse that kind of all of the components sort of experience from that recoil, the, you know, the round leaving the barrel. I figured, well, which is what's a commercially available round that has the most intense recoil for the AR-15? And you could do like a 50 Beowulf, but it's hard to come by nowadays. So we like, okay, we'll do 450 Bushmaster. And it was like on shot like 350, the pistol grip, not the screw, but the pistol grip steered off where I was holding it in my hand, like split in half, right? We had to put a different pistol grip on and continue shooting until we were out of the ammo. But
yeah, all our components did fine. It recoiled.
It recoiled very much like a 308 Winchester. It was actually some light bruising here.
Yeah, it wasn't pleasant. It wasn't
but there was some other testing we've done, you know, full auto, the like. There's a video up on YouTube of us doing about just shy of 500 rounds nonstop, AR-15, all our components, right? Magnesium handguard, magnesium upper, magnesium lower, but just like few rounds shy of 500 full auto.
17 or 18 30 round mags, you know, for 28 20 round
28 30s.
Yeah.
28 30 mags loaded to like 28 rounds, and it's just going nonstop. So anyone like trying to do some type of torture testing that's like, hey, whatever you're going to throw at your rifle, you know, your AR-15, which can see a lot of abuse from people. Like, this is what we've shown, this is what we've done. So we stand behind the product, right? And anything you throw at it, anything you throw at your aluminum rifle, this will be able to take.
Beautiful. Well, I'm super excited. We're releasing it on our website here in the next couple days. I know you guys are live. Is that correct today?
Yeah,
Yep,
we're live. We
Upper-
actually yesterday. I don't know if it was 9 a.m. yesterday. We went live.
Oh, yesterday. Okay, perfect. So, I mean, I feel like I can sit here and talk a lot to you guys, especially getting into the nerdy stuff. I actually enjoy that, but I don't know that everybody on here is going to want to enjoy it. They just want to see the product and know more about it. I think we covered a lot of the important details. They are mil spec, so you shouldn't have any fitment issues. Compatibility is going to be clean across the board. We have multiple handguard lengths now that you can get. The two longer variations being split rail or full rail, correct? Or is it just the long?
No, the 12.5 and the 15 both are.
Okay, yep. Both split rail or full rail. And then colors, we've got a black, standard black, a tungsten, and then the FDE, correct?
Yep, correct.
So again, we'll get better video of this. I doubt this is going to show colors all that great. But I really like the tungsten that you guys have are using. I think it's an insanely clean look to it. It's not overly gray like it stands out. I don't know. I really like it. So that's why we requested these parts to make a build for. So stay tuned, I guess, to see how we're going to do that. I'm pretty excited for that rifle. But besides that, I just want to say thank you guys so much for working with us and allowing us to help you bring this to market and just trusting us to help you with that process. And thanks for doing the grunt work to figure out how to make this magnesium work in this industry so that we can see some new innovation going on, essentially some changes and just not being stuck with the same stuff every single day. Yeah, if you guys are the viewers, if you're interested in it, you can definitely check out these products on ROAM's website. They also have their full offerings for AR-10s. We are just going to be housing the AR-15s on our website. So if you're an AR-10 person and you want to check them out, definitely go to ROAM. Otherwise, if you want to check out these AR-15 parts, the upper, the lower, or the handguards, you can come to our website and or ROAM's website, check them out. Anything else that you guys want to say?
Just thank you for appreciating this and wanting to bring us on. We're happy for the partnership, and like, he's very obsessive. The majority of the reason why all the surface finish issues are, you know, him being obsessive, sometimes maybe overly obsessive. I have to pull him back, but that's the whole tension, right? You know, he goes as far as he can go, and I'd say, okay, now it's time to stop. But this is a really good product. We're really happy with it. We're proud of it, and I guess that's it's
been a long haul.
It's been a long haul, but I guess you have to be a little obsessive and a little stupid, and hopefully you actually get to the end. So you're helping us along. We're it's very gratifying seeing people that actually like what we produce and see the effort, and we're happy to see where this takes us.
Thanks, guys. Thank you so much for taking your time out of your day to view or to hang out with us for our viewers. And we look forward to doing a lot more stuff with you in the future.
All right,
we do too. Thanks, Sean. Bye.